Dawn slides over the Gaza plain in thin, honey-colored bands, and my camel rocks beneath me like a slow ship on an unseen tide. Each step sets the tack to chiming, spare music in air that still holds night's chill. Breath drifts white, instantly snagged by a wind that already smells of hot iron. Ahead, land and sky merge in a gray lavender hush that lasts only heartbeats before the first glare. Every grain of sand seems poised to burst alive as soon as the sun clears the rim. I lean forward, patting the beast's woolly neck. He answers with a low grunt, jaws grinding sideways, never ceasing. The rifle on my back taps rhythm against my shoulder. The almost empty canteen thumps the saddlebag. Behind me, Mackenzie. No one speaks. Words feel extravagant when water is rationed to mouthfuls that must last until dusk. Far to the south, artillery mumbles, a dull percussion rolling across the flat like distant thunder from a sky that has forgotten rain. Half-light stiffens into morning, and with it comes the first true heat. A hazy bruise builds where earth meets sky, brown-gray, shifting, alive, thoughtful. That's the sandstorm the sergeant warned about. Out here, the weather chooses its own battles. Men simply march inside them. My joints ache the way fence posts creak before a southerly back home. And every instinct says, take shelter. Yet our map pushes us west. We need to sketch Ottoman trenches before the storm sweeps our tracks from the world. Thought drifts despite discipline. Last night, crouched beside a guttering lamp, I tried to write home. The sheet stayed mostly blank, save for 3 lines, warily. Still kicking, still thirsty, still thinking of the surf. I could not decide whether to mention Tommy Harris, who died of heatstroke 2 days back, or the way we buried him with his water bottle still half full. Resigned. Orders were orders. I folded the paper anyway, tucked it into my paybook. Thoughtful. Maybe I'll finish it if this patrol ends with all of us intact. Maybe the page will stay blank, like the sky before first light. We angle along a dry wadi, hoof pads sliding on salt-crusted earth. Scraps of acacia clawed passing legs. A droplet of resin glistens on torn bark. Its scent, half eucalyptus, half sunburnt pasture, pulls me home for a heartbeat before the camel stumbles and snaps me back. We crest a low dune. From its crown the desert opens vast and terrible, the brewing storm a dark wall stretching north to south. Light on the sand takes on a sickly copper tinge, as if sunrise has already gone rancid. Movement flickers far off. 2 riders, silhouettes only, drift across the flat and vanish behind a rise. Friend? Turk? No way to know. Contact is forbidden unless vital. We are too few, ammunition too precious. I raise a clenched fist. Our column stills, Goggles click into place. Fine sand already skitters against canvas like the first spits of rain. The wind whistles louder, prying at scarves, searching skin. Mackenzie nudges his camel beside mine. "Storm'll hit within the hour," he mutters, voice muffled by cloth. His chin points to a rocky spine ahead, scarcely higher than a man's shoulders. I nod. It is the only landmark in miles, its lee slope perhaps enough to blunt the first blast. Urgency quickens every stride. Tack, clatters, hooves crunch, and the sun becomes no more than a dull copper coin behind dust. We reach the ridge just as the first hard gust slams into us, turning the world sepia. Camels groan and kneel unbidden. I dismount, boots sinking ankle deep. Sand needles my cheeks, finds the gap beneath goggles, grinds between molars. I press my back to warm stone. Troopers fan into a loose perimeter, rifles resting across packs, muzzles angled down so grit won't foul the barrels. Conversation shrinks to hand signs. A flick, a nod, 2 fingers held tight. Storm arrives in full. Air becomes a living column of sand and roar. A furnace breath laced with static that lifts hair under my helmet. Lightning dances inside the dust, white veins that never touch ground. I can see no farther than the camel's quivering flank. He moans, eyes rolling white. I lay a palm against his shoulder and whisper nonsense. My heart drums fast but steady. Fear is a tide I learned to float months ago, though it still leaves a salt line when it recedes. Minutes stretch elastic. Every breath tastes of blood and canvas dye. Then, abruptly, the wind slackens. Just a fraction, like a giant catching his breath. In that hush, a new tremor reaches me through the stone. Hoofbeats, deliberate, rhythmic. Surprised, impossible. Yet there they are. I lift my rifle, thumb the safety. Across the swirl a shadow forms. 1, 2. Half a dozen unguided camels, eyes rolling, driven before the storm. Thoughtful. Relief trickles cold, but unease lingers. Riderless mounts mean riders lost, and lost men can stumble into gun sights as quick as fate. Before the notion settles, a sharp crack whips overhead. Stone chips sting my brow. Instinct flings me prone, sand pouring into collar and cuffs. Another shot, farther left, wild, searching, carried by wind. Troopers hug the ground, weapons ready, but discipline intact. Visibility is near nothing. To fire back would waste rounds and give the storm a muzzle flash to betray us. I wipe grit from my goggles, pulse thrumming in wrists and neck. The wind gathers new strength, moaning through cracks in the ridge, an animal cry that swallows all else. Somewhere beyond the murk, a Turkish marksman resets his sights, aiming at shadows against a sky he cannot see. We hold tighter to the stone, strained breathing, lungs pulling through fabric filters. Thunder grumbles overhead. Real cloud or detonation swallowed by dust, it's hard to judge. Fat drops spatter briefly, sizzling on hot rocks before vanishing in steam. The storm now smells of wet clay mixed with cordite, bittersweet like rain on a bush track after someone's fired a rabbit gun. Suspense coils tighter than any trigger spring. One wrong movement, one careless silhouette, and more rounds will follow. Or the wind will shift, lifting the curtain and exposing us like crows on a fence line. The gale rears again. Sand whips sideways so hard the ridge seems to vibrate. I twist the scarf higher, voice a rasp through grit. Hold fire, wait for sight. The storm answers with a silence so heavy it rings. For a single heartbeat, just before the desert snaps once more with wind, grit, and a fresh rifle crack, dangerously close. The bullet's whine is swallowed by the roar, yet its message is plain. Unseen eyes have found our range. I press cheek to rifle stock, straining to spot a target through swirling dusk. Nothing. Only the creeping certainty that the sandstorm is no longer the worst enemy on this plain. Somewhere to my left, Mackenzie's silhouette turns, waiting for my next word. I draw a breath so shallow it barely stirs the scarf, steady my pulse, and listen as the wind builds, ready to carve us from the ridge or cover a silent advance. Whatever happens, it will unfold in the next few breaths. And that is where I leave the thought, finger poised above the trigger, heart counting the beats between storm-born bullets and the looming wall of dust roaring toward us. Waiting for the moment everything breaks at once. The sandstorm hits like a living cannon blast. First a gut punch of wind, then a roar so dense it feels solid. The ridge that sheltered us moments ago vanishes, dissolved into a wall of whirling grit that chews at skin and leather alike. My camel balls, head twisted sideways as if trying to wrench itself free of its own bridle. I grab the reins, knuckles whitening, and crouch low, cheek pressed to his trembling flank. The world shrinks to one square yard of boiling sand. Everything else is myth. Breathing becomes work. Each gasp drags fire into my throat, an iron taste of dust and fear. I wrap the scarf tighter, but the wind claws at every seam, forcing grains through weave and eyelash. Somewhere close, far, a rifle barks again, sound warped into a flat snap that could be 5 yards or 50. I lift my rifle, but sighting is hopeless. The storm turns distance into illusion. The Turk might be firing blind, spooked by the same ghosts swirling around me. Or perhaps he sees silhouettes I cannot. Thoughtful. Either way, I choose silence. Ammunition is a promise we cannot break on guesswork. Worried, minutes smear into one another, measured only by the heart's slow insistence. Thud, 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 thud. I worry the storm will bury us like Pompeii, leaving nothing but curved bones and rusted stirrups for some future scholar to puzzle over. Yet the wind is restless, It comes alive, spends its wrath, slips a gear. The wall thins from opaque brown to a bruise-colored veil. Shapes surface. A kneeling camel here, a trooper there. Outlines etched in blurred charcoal. Mackenzie's hand rises, thumb and little finger extended, asking if I'm intact. Relieved. I answer with a fist. Good enough. Sight returns by inches. The ridge reemerges, pitted and scoured, its leeward face now drifted thigh-deep. On the slope's far edge, a dark smear stains the stone. Fresh lead spat against shale. Realizing, so the sniper had our measure after all. I scan for movement. Nothing but torn banners of dust, scudding low across the flat, like tatters of some ancient regiment still charging through time.
"Mount up," I rasp, voice a ghost in my throat. The order passes along the staggered line, gestures more than words. We must quit this perch before the storm's second breath, or before the enemy finds a clearer shot. Hell might follow, but stasis is worse. Getting the camels upright is a wrestling match. Their knees stick in newly formed drifts. Every grunt sounds like a bagpipe dying. I haul on the lead rein, whisper curses softened into endearments. At last my mount rises, groaning, and I swing aboard. Canvas saddle creaks, tack clinks, a small comfort that something still obeys laws older than war. Visibility stretches to perhaps 30 yards, just enough to navigate by the low ridge running southwest. We advance single file, noses to the skim of wind. The sun, half strangled by dust, glows a red coin above us, casting no warmth, only glare. Grit dances through the air in shimmering columns. Each spark of sand catches what light it can before tumbling on. It is like riding through the belly of a furnace sprinkled with stars. Time drifts again. The storm mutters behind us, retreating in grudging steps. With every mile the heat rises. Damp sweat from earlier cools, then dries to a crust of salt that cracks when I shift in the saddle. My tongue thickens. Every swallow steals a bead from the reservoir of spit we ration like gold. Somewhere water waits, cisterns near Beersheba, wells rumored along the Wadi Gaza, but rumor won't wet lips. Our map shows only lines and guesses. Artillery murmurs once more, farther west this time. Ottoman guns lobbing shells toward the coastal brigades, perhaps. Each concussion rolls across the desert and arrives as a heavy sigh, as though the land itself tires of being blasted. We keep angle on their flank, sketching landmarks for the sappers. A collapsed cistern, a grove of ragged palms, a stretch of trench whose parapet now lies half-flooded with wind-blown sand. I scratch quick notes in a pocketbook, pencil tip skipping over grit ground deep into the paper's grain. Mid-morning fillets the horizon with heat lashes. Distances buckle. A stand of palms ripples like oars dipped in water. The ground itself seems to breathe, exhaling haze that flutters around the camel's knees. The animals slow instinctively, wide feet splaying, nostrils flaring pink as they draw in air hotter than exhaled breath. I catch the faint stink of ammonia, sweat burning in wool, and beneath it, the sweeter animal scent that reminds me of cattle yards back home. Comfort and ache mingle. A small rise gives me vantage on the column. 10 riders, all present, yet one shape slumps forward. Private O'Leary.
His head lolls near the horn, helmet askew. I signal a halt. Sand whispers as mounts kneel. Knees hit dust with soft thuds. Mackenzie swings down, trudges to O'Leary, and steadies the lad's shoulders. I join him. Up close, the private's eyes are glazed marbles, pupils pulled tight against glare. Skin that should flush red under this sun has taken on a worrying gray pallor, veins dark beneath. Sweat has dried to nothing. His lips crack when they part, but no words come. "He's cooked," Mackenzie mutters, tipping a few drops from his own canteen onto a rag. Regulation says guard every ounce, but humanity scoffs at regulations when a mate's life teeters. We dab O'Leary's forehead, pour a scant capful along his parched gums. He swallows once, then his eyes slip shut and stay there. I glance east. The sun already sits nearly overhead, and the slight breeze that lingers feels drawn from a kiln. Southward lies the promise of shade, a shallow wadi that might hold a trickle. It's 2 miles out, maybe 3. Easy distance on a cool evening. Lethal now. Options flicker. Send 2 riders to the wadi for water and return. Or push the whole patrol deeper into enemy glare, risking discovery and dehydration both. Headquarters wants trench sketches by nightfall, but orders don't drink. Men do. The weight of command, temporary though it may be, presses between my shoulder blades harder than the rifle sling. I signal the troopers into a rough circle, camels facing outward for a modicum of shade in the middle. Packs come off, ground sheets stretched between saddles to form a low tarp. O'Leary is eased beneath the makeshift awning. His chest rises shallowly. Each breath rattles. While we work, I keep half an eye on the horizon. The storm's tail twists like dark smoke, crawling north. Beyond it, mirage haze reveals and hides shapes. Thorn scrub, collapsed tents. Perhaps mounted scouts pacing our flank. Hard to tell real from imagined when the air itself is a mirror. The rifleman who took shots during the storm could still be near, squinting through warped glass at our huddled forms. I post 2 lookouts on the ridge crest, Anderson and Garung. Rifles across knees, goggles up to shield glints of sunlight off scopes. Canteens are uncorked one by one. Each man tips a measured swallow past cracked lips, then offers the vessel to his camel, a courtesy returned in patience and strength later. The animals gulp greedily, long lashes fluttering. Even one mouthful seems to steady them. I mark the remaining water, less than a pint apiece now, barely enough to moisten tongues, let alone cool fever. My pulse skips. We can't linger. Every minute here is liquid draining from a cracked jar. The breeze falters entirely, and in the stillness I hear faint ticking, sand sliding down metal perhaps, or the distant chatter of insects hidden in scrub. It could also be trigonometrical bones cooling inside a sniper's bolt action. I scan the rim again. Nothing. Mackenzie crouches beside O'Leary, feels for pulse. "Weak," he whispers. He looks up, eyes asking without asking. Concerned. "What now?" I draw a slow breath that tastes of iron filings. We push for that wadi. Single file, slow. Keep him shaded as best you can. The words feel fragile, more hope than certainty. But they set bodies moving. And sometimes that is the only cure for dread. We rig a sling between two camels, ground sheet folded into a cradle. O'Leary is lifted gently, his boots trailing dust as the animals rise. The rest of us remount quietly, somberly, canteens sloshing faintly, a cruel reminder of scarcity. The column edges forward, each step is deliberate, fought against heat that presses from above and radiates from below. My boots feel soft, near melting. Windless air lets sweat pool, only to evaporate in sudden waves that leave skin cooler for half a second before the furnace returns doubled. Half a mile on, the mirage ahead falters and clears. I glimpse the wadi, an etched scar across dun earth, fringed by scrub that looks almost green. Salvation, or another trick. Heart hammers anyway. O'Leary moans, barely audible. The sound ripples through the patrol like the first drop of rain on tin, fragile yet filled with portent. I kick my camel into a begrudging trot, dust swirling behind. If there is water, we'll find it. If there isn't, I shove the thought aside. Behind us, the sky remains streaked with storm's shadow, thunder rumbling like a god still clearing his throat after laughter. Ahead, only heat shimmer and the promise, illusory or real, of shade. My throat rasps a prayer half-remembered, words lost to dust and fatigue, yet rhythm enough to keep the heart beating. And then, just as the ground slopes downward toward that dark gash, O'Leary's camel stumbles. The sling jolts. I hear a wet I wheel around in time to see his arm slide free, fingers searching for purchase on empty air. The fabric cradle twists, dumps him sideways. He hits the sand with a sound no louder than a dropped cantaloupe, and lies still. Time halts, sun burning holes through the sky. For a breath I do nothing. Cannot move, cannot blink, while the wadi's promise hovers 100 yards ahead, close enough to taste, yet farther than any distance I've known. A single bead of sweat slips from my brow, finds the corner of my mouth, and vanishes on a tongue suddenly dry as old bone. I swing down, feet sinking in hot grit, and run toward him, heart thudding like hooves on rickety boards, knowing every step might be seconds too late. My boots hit the sand, still ringing from the impact of O'Leary's body. Heat radiates up my shins like slow fire, but I barely feel it over the hammering in my ears. Mackenzie is already kneeling, fingers scrabbling at O'Leary's jacket buttons to free the chest, to let whatever faint breeze exists touch that scorched skin. I slide in opposite him, palms slick with sweat that vanishes the instant it appears. "Easy, mate," Stay with us, I mutter, though whether the words are meant for O'Leary, Mackenzie, or my own clawing fear I couldn't say. His eyes flutter open a crack, pale blue washed almost white, and roll back again. Skin, once copper from weeks under this sun, now holds the waxy sheen of a candle too close to flame. We loosen his collar, tilt his head. A tremor runs the length of his frame. One long shudder, then stillness. No breathing, no pulse. Panic leaps, raw and bright. Mackenzie and I lock eyes. No orders here, just instinct, and we set to work. I clamp nose, fill his lungs once, twice, while Mackenzie presses the chest in a staccato rhythm that matches the distant artillery, steady, relentless. 30 compressions, 2 breaths, 30 more. The desert squats around us like a silent onlooker, offering nothing, no shade, no mercy, only the hiss of sand as the wind crawls through the scorched grass tufts. Somewhere behind, the camels groan, puzzled by this sudden halt in the furnace. A minute, 2. Time has no edges inside a crisis. Then at last a weak cough, a wheeze. O'Leary's ribs jerk against the khaki shirt. Color doesn't return, but motion is enough. We ease him into the sling again, draping a length of damp canvas overhead to shield what sun we can.
Water? He needs it, like veins need blood.
We need it. The wadi's lip lies a stone's throw ahead. If the sand hasn't choked it dry, perhaps a trickle still lurks beneath the crust. I signal the column. 10 riders, now 9 active and 1 half alive, pivot toward that slit in the earth, so faint it might be illusion. Each step is torture. The slope drops away under the camel's pads, sand avalanching in soft sighs. Heat beats on helmet tin until metal brands the brow. I taste tin as well, iron from gnawed lips, salt from dried sweat. The air is so starved of moisture that each exhale returns as a gritty cough. Wearisome. The wadi floor greets us with a meager strip of shade cast by its ragged wall. The relief is instant, like slipping a fevered head beneath cool sheets, but the respite is fragile. The ground here is cracked mud, patterned like reptile scales, hints of damp beneath. No visible water. I drop to my knees, knife tip prying. Dark clay clings to the blade. Hopeful? Hope kicks hard. Dig, I rasp. Hands entrenching tools, even canteen caps claw at the surface. Within moments, a shallow basin forms, and seepage glistens, pinpricks, then a film, then a trembling puddle barely wider than a plate. Victory smells of fresh soil and something mineral, almost metallic. We wait while the trickle thickens. Each man squats on heels, canteen uncapped, eyes fixed like children watching a pastry rise. The first to fill is poured over O'Leary's chest and temples. He gasps at the shock, eyelids fluttering. Another lidful spills into his cracked mouth. He swallows without waking. We cycle through canteens, half for bodies, half for beasts, half for replenishing. Mathematics of survival bends rules. There is always one more half somewhere. By the time the mud hole collapses from our greed, every vessel bears a finger's breadth of life. It must carry us through the day and night both. The shade begins to crawl up the opposite wall. Sun past its zenith now, but the heat lingers, heavy as wet canvas. Sweating again, we sort gear, clear weapons of encroaching grit. Anderson sketches the wadi's bend into his notebook, marking possible seasonal stream, minimal flow, clay 12-inch. Intelligence wants these scraps as much as enemy trench grids. Water may decide battles out here faster than bullets. O'Leary's breaths lengthen but stay shallow. Pupils react. That is something. His uniform is soaked, and the wind atop the wadi ridge whisks away heat faster than the sun can replace it. Yet one look at the man tells me the line is knife thin. Tilts one way, he lives. The other, he's just a story told around a campfire. Thoughtful. Best push while light holds, Mackenzie offers. He taps his watch, cracked crystal, still ticking. 2 hours until the gloaming. 2 hours to gain ground and find real shade before night drops its cold hammer. Heatstroke victims can't afford the chill swing that comes after dusk. We set off again, slower, every man conscious of the fragile cargo sagging between camels. The wadi curves, then flattens into open desert once more. Mirage shimmer dances in layers, silver sheets that ripple like lake water. Occasionally, the glaze parts to reveal scraps of the Turkish line, wooden revetments, a flag limp in the dead air, the glint of observation scope. Too distant to threaten, yet close enough for nerves. The wind has shifted from the north, bringing a smell like old gunpowder mixed with sea salt. Jaffa breeze curling inland. It stirs dust into spiral columns that waltz across the flats. Most spin out, but one keeps pace with us, a thin brown ghost matching our slow crawl. Superstition whispers, a bad sign. The patrol grows quiet. Half an hour on, O'Leary stirs. A weak hand gropes at empty air, finds my sleeve. His lips form words I cannot hear. I lean in. Ma, water. I tip the canteen. He sips once, twice, eyes closing again. His fingers relax their grip and slide away. For a moment, I think we've turned the tide. Then his chest hitches, one ragged exhale, followed by a silence that lengthens far too long. I press ear to sternum. Nothing. Pulse? None. Mackenzie reads my face, swings down, tries compressions. 5, 10, no response. A shallow moan escapes someone, perhaps me. We work on him again, but there is a different weight now, a stillness that creeps outward like frost. At 30 compressions, I grasp Mackenzie's wrist. He stops, shoulders slumping even under the light kit. The patrol stands at odd angles, eyes anywhere but here. No chaplain, no bugle, just the infinity of sand. We cannot carry a corpse. Weight and morale both argue against it. Regulation burial, shallow trench, kit removed for reissue, identity disc left. We dig in the wadi wall where the clay is soft. O'Leary will lie in cooler earth at least. His photograph, two smiling girls on a veranda swing, slides from his breast pocket. I tuck it beneath his hands. A simple cross of bayonet blades marks the spot until we can raise timber. I mouth the Lord's Prayer, voice sandpaper raw, stopping at "Deliver us from evil," because there is no amen strong enough for this place. Thunder rumbles far off, or maybe distant guns. Sand grates against steel as we reclaim our bayonets. The patrol mounts in heavy silence. One less set of reins to jingle. One more memory to carry. Dusk's first violet smear cools the sky, while the ground still glows with banked fire. A breeze finds us, coaxing tiny sheets of grit to skate across camel tracks. Visibility drops as the wind picks up, blowing in from multiple directions. Unnatural eddies that twist born of scorched land, meeting cooler air overhead. Dust haze thickens, steals landmarks. I consult compass. Needle drifts erratic, tugged by unseen oar, or perhaps the static latent storm remnants. "We stick to bearing 180, I call. "Keep interval tight." Heads nod, goggles drop. The animals sense unease. They groan, shifting weight. In half-lit turbulence, the ridgelines blur, silhouettes stacking one over another until depth loses meaning. Within minutes, the world is reduced to a honeycomb of brown walls. I glimpse Mackenzie's back a yard ahead, then he vanishes behind swirling veil. Camels grunt, tack rattles, then even those sounds dull as wind fills my ears like surf. I shout, but my voice returns as someone else's murmur. I lean forward, urging the beast on, trusting the column still moves as a whole. But shapes peel away, sponged clean by haze. A few yards becomes an abyss. Every direction looks the same. The compass spins again, crazy needle circling. I halt, trying to orient on the sinking sun, but dust cloaks it, leaving only a dull pewter smear overhead. Breath tightens. If the patrol fractures in this gloom, night will scatter us over miles, each man guessing at stars through grit. I turn in the saddle, scan for any familiar outline. Nothing but tatters of dust, drifting like smoke signals that spell no language I know. A crack of tack iron rings to my right, maybe Anderson's cinch buckle. I steer toward it, calling his name. The sound is whipped away. Another groan, camel or man, echoes somewhere off my left. The noises overlap, swirl, vanish. Disoriented, I realize I've lost the sense of which was first, which direction is echo or origin, anxious. Panic edges thought. I fight it, gripping the reins, focusing on the rhythm of my own heart. 1, 2, 1, 2. But even that pulse feels foreign inside this shapeless dusk. A faint glow appears ahead. Amber, wavering, uncertain. Firelight? Lamp? Enemy sentry. Short pause. I hesitate, determined. The only certainty is that staying still invites the desert to erase me, grain by grain. Click my tongue, nudge the camel toward the flicker, hopeful, hoping it's one of ours, signaling. The beast lurches forward, steps muffled in softening sand. Each pulse of light seems to dim, drift sideways, then glow again, like a lantern swung by an unsteady hand. And somewhere behind, carried on the swirling wind, straining to hear, I think I hear Mackenzie shout my name, once, and then nothing but dust swallowing sound whole, despairing, leaving me to choose between a fading lamp and a voice I cannot locate.
I angle toward the wavering glow, heart ticking like a pocket watch dropped in a churn of gears. The camel obeys, though every muscle in his flanks trembles with fatigue. Sand eddies around his legs, rising in smoky ribbons that swallow his footprints before they settle. My throat rasps a warning. This could be anything. A lantern on a Turkish picket, a stray patrol flare guttering out, or the last trick of sunset refracted through dust. Yet inertia, that stubborn cousin of courage, keeps me moving. A gust snaps across the plain, sharp, metallic, and the light vanishes. I curse under my breath, swing the camel in a tightening arc, searching for the source. Nothing. Only deepening dusk, the sky bleeding from copper to bruised violet. The wind shifts again, tore my scarf aside, smearing grit across my teeth. In the hush between gusts, Mackenzie's call comes faint, but from far behind now, warped by distance and swirling sand. The choice rears up again, insoluble. Chase the uncertain lamp, or backtrack toward a voice swallowed by desert. I draw the reins, force a pause. The camel snorts, grinding yellowed incisors, big eyes blinking grit. Breath slow, mate. The storm has throttled itself to ragged sighs. Time to use the lull. I swing down, boots sinking ankle deep. Kneeling, I press a gloved palm to the ground, still hot enough to sting, and steady the compass on my knee. The needle drifts, but holds roughly north-south now that the static charge has bled off. Bearing south will steer me toward where the column should be, toward Mackenzie. The phantom light, if real, lay nearly due east, toward the Turkish lines. I weigh it in the fragile balance of mind and mouth. One direction offers comrades and dwindling water, the other risk and, perhaps, intelligence worth lives. The map in my tunic pocket prickles as if reminding me of orders signed in ink rather than sweat. Headquarters wants eyes on the forward trenches by dawn. If fate has singled me out to walk the edge alone, so be it. At least the night will be honest about it.
I mount again, heel the camel east, southeast into the last copper veins of light. Wind slackens further. Sand drifts settle into ripples like frozen waves. The desert hush feels immense, yet fragile, as though any loud thought might shatter it. Above, the first stars flicker through dust haze, pale ghosts waiting to burn clear. Minutes pass, then the glow returns, steady now, low to the ground, no higher than a man's chest. Not a flare then, a lantern or shielded fire. I ease forward, slowing each step until hoof pads barely scuff the sand. A faint moor reaches me, too distant for words. Another voice answers. Ottoman? Could be. My pulse hammers against the rifle sling. Dismount, ground the camel. I murmur a soothing click, loop reins over a knee-high tussock. Thin anchor, but the beast is spent and unlikely to stray. I pull the rifle free, check chamber by feel, thumb safety half off. Goggles up to the helmet brim, no glass glinting. Then I crawl. The sand is still warm, radiating heat collected all day, but cool enough on the surface to leach sweat. Each movement slides grit under webbing straps, grinding skin raw. I keep low, belly brushing the dune's windward slope, the smell of camel sweat clinging close. The glow brightens. 2 lanterns now, maybe 3, partly screened by burlap. Voices clearer, consonants, phrases, the occasional snickering. Turkish soldiers, sure as sunrise. I ease to the crest of a low hummock. Below lies a shallow hollow, scooped by wind. In its cup sit 4 men, rifles propped on packs, lanterns nestled against a half-collapsed sandbag wall. A small pot steams over coals, its lid rattling soft like coins in a jar. The scene might be homey were it not for the bayonets glinting at their knees. Beyond them, barely discernible in starlight, zigzag trenches scar the plain, timber revetments catching silver light like bones. So this is the outpost stringing the eastern approach, exactly the ground HQ guessed but never confirmed. Thunder mutters to the west, distant guns again, followed by a roll of real sky thunder farther south. The Ottomans glance that way, speak quick words. One strips off a coat, fans himself, heat still thick even after sunset. They seem relaxed, perhaps believing the sandstorm their shield tonight. Good. I study every line, where the trench dog legs, where a strand of wire gleams faint near a berm, where a camel track, likely ours, cuts too close for comfort. Mental photographs etched deep. A sudden clink of tack behind me freezes blood. I twist slowly. My camel, restless, has shifted, reins dragging across a tin mess pan. Lantern light below flickers as a sentry lifts his head. He barks a sharp query. Another soldier rises, rifle in hand, steps out of the pool of light, scanning the darkness between us. Moonlight has not yet grown strong. The dunes lie in jagged shadow and luminous powder. Still, my heart drums loud enough to shake grit loose from my hair. The sentry stalks a dozen paces up the slope, pausing to listen. He's no more than 20 yards off. One cough, one camel grunt, and I'm a ghost with lead in my chest. I press flat, fingertip on trigger guard. The wind returns in a lazy swirl, lifting a veil of sand that drifts between us. The Turk, mutterings, adjusts his cap, stares a moment longer, then shrugs and heads back, boots whispering on gravel crust. Exhale, slow. Lanterns dim as they bank the wicks. getting ready to move or turn in. Now or never. I belly crawl in a curve, marking bearings with star patterns. 30 yards, 50, then drop into a shallow gutter the storm scoured clean. From its floor I gain my feet, keep low, circle wide till the outpost lights are pinpricks behind. Only then do I turn north, angling to where I reckon Mackenzie might steer the column, if they kept bearing. Night deepens. The moon, fat and warped by high dust, climbs until its light silvers every dune crest and turns hollows into ink. With goggles up, the world sharpens. Ridges gleam. Camel thorn casts spidery shadows. Even the cracks in dried mud show fine detail. Yet beauty cannot moisten the tongue, and thirst grows like a nail slowly driven. The canteen's weight on my hip is mocking memory. The few inches left I swore not to touch till dawn. I resist, counting steps in sevens to keep the mind busy. 7 for my sisters in Ballarat. 7 for the cricket pitch behind the school. 7 for Tommy Harris folded into sand 2 days past. Grit scours the throat, each swallow harsher. A drizzle sweeps out of nowhere, tiny droplets spitting from a low cloud, sizzling as they meet hot ground, vanishing before they wet a boot. Mercy, cruel and brief. The smell it leaves, petrichor and gunmetal, reminds me of summer storms on corrugated iron roofs back home. The memory almost hurts more than thirst. Hours pass, measured only by the moon shouldering west and the artillery strobes painting low clouds near Gaza City. Twice I pause to listen, nothing but wind and an occasional distant camel grunt. No sign of the patrol. The desert is immense. A man alone seems less than thought. I crest a ridge and stop short. Below, as if conjured by wish, rests a faint chain of lights, tiny, shielded lamps set at intervals. Not Ottoman yellow, but bluish ANZAC shades made from cut-down bully beef tins. Forward listening post maybe, or the column's improvised signal line laid for stragglers. Relief surges so fierce, knees wobble. I tip the canteen, swallow a single mouthful, warm, tin-flavored heaven, and start down. Halfway I catch voices. Gurung's lilting English. Anderson's deeper rumble. Someone cursing softly about sand in rifle oil. A silhouette steps into lamp glow, sentinel, bayonet. Upright. He spots me. Levels the rifle. I raise both hands, murmuring challenge code. Anderson's flaming galah, countersign floats back. Softer than wind. The muzzle dips, then troopers surround, slapping backs, questions tumbling. Curious, where'd you drift? Curious, you see Turks? Concerned, Mackenzie all right? I answer what I can, wave toward the dunes. Rapidly. Outpost there, 4 lads. Trenches beyond, wire here. Words spill, rapid, mind still half feral. They usher me under a poncho rigged as lean-to. Mackenzie kneels over a map lit by shaded lamp. His face lines deepen at my approach, relief mingling with exhaustion. He folds me into a brief hug, jolts back. Relieved. Thought the storm swallowed you whole. Hoarsely. Near enough, I rasp, kneeling. I sketch the trench pattern in dust, mark approximate bearing. Impressed. Mackenzie whistles low. Thoughtful. That's our gap for dawn recon. If we can crawl close. We huddle, planning silent moves. Water ration, 1 cap each. My last swig counted. Others split theirs. The Camel line groans softly, stomachs churning cud. Far off, a star shells out. Meteoric flare or flare shell? The night answers with a faint boom. Uncertain. Thunder, artillery, who can tell? Near midnight, temperature dives. Heat hoarded in sand seeps to sky, air sharpening against sweat-damp clothes. Troopers shiver under greatcoats, cupping hands round enamel mugs half filled with chicory brew. We rotate watch, 2 on, 6 trying to rest. I draw first shift. I climb a dune spine, settle behind a knuckled clump of saltbush. The moon's descent leaves darkness pooled across the plain. Only the Turkish line glints occasionally when a sentry moves. Silence. Then faint hoofbeats, distant, measured, echo from northeast. I stiffen, glass the horizon through rifle sights. Shapes, 3, maybe 4 camels, riding light, no lanterns. Ottoman courier patrol cutting behind our flank? Could also be our own mounted scouts, but they approach from enemy side. I slide down, whisper to Garung. He relays to Mackenzie. The camp wakes like a cat stretching, quiet but ready. Should we hide, ambush, or shadow? Decision hangs. Meanwhile, the riders close the gap, silhouettes merging with dunes, 30 yards out and coming fast. No time for subtlety. Mackenzie signals. Stay low, wait. We crouch behind camel bodies, rifles leveled through legs. The hoofbeats stop abruptly, riders reining in atop the ridge we once called shelter. Dust swirls round their mounts. For a moment they appear etched against the sky, dark robes, curved rifles, not Ottomans, but Bedouin irregulars who sell eyes and blades to whoever pays. Calling out. One calls in Arabic, voice carrying eerily clear. A query, perhaps. Silence answers. Stern, another voice, sharper. Then a laugh, brittle. They begin to descend the slope directly toward our picket line. My finger curls over the trigger. Orders flicker through memory. Avoid engagements unless vital, but letting them ride over us risks discovery of the whole brigade's flank. Mackenzie raises 2 fingers. Ready, fire. Breath holds. Sand hisses under hooves, growing louder, louder, and the camels suddenly balk, sniffing foreign scent. Riders, angry, curse, yank reins. Confusion is seconds. Seconds enough. Mackenzie drops his hand. 1 shot, then volley. Muzzles flash, sound flacked beneath blanket wraps. 2 riders pitch sideways, thud into sand. The others wheel, spurring beasts into frantic sprint, shrieking oaths that slice night air. We hold fire, ammunition thin, message sent, gravely. But their cries will carry. In distant trenches, trumpets may already sound. Dispatch runners stir. Long pause. Our covert line now glows brighter on enemy maps. I swap an empty clip, heart pounding, not from fight, but what comes next. Somewhere just beyond hearing, artillery crews might be ramming shells, adjusting sights on coordinates, whispered by Bedouin scouts. Or cavalry reserves might ready for pre-dawn sweep. Night watch thickens with tension. Above, clouds clump, masking stars. Wind picks up, cooler now, carrying scent of damp from sea or distant rain. A drizzle would mask tracks, tamp dust, bless lips, or it might delay the dawn charge we need for recon. Resigned, every advantage slices two ways here. Grimly, I crouch behind my knoll once more, eyes stitched to eastern dark. If retaliation comes, it will roll across this plain with camels, thunder, and muzzle flash lightning. Bleakly, and we hold scarcely 3 dozen rifles, half-empty canteens, and one map marked in dust, somberly. In the hush, I hear O'Leary's empty sling flap against its camel's flank, lonely music in rising wind, and wonder how many more names the sand will drink before sunrise drags us into its white glare. The night thickens until the air itself feels kneaded with charcoal. Clouds stack low, blotting the stars we'd counted on for bearings. Only stray shreds of moonlight slip through, silvering the rim of each dune in ragged halos. Our little outpost, 3 flickering bully beef lanterns half buried behind packs, is a moth speck in that expanse. But after the shooting, every trooper can't shake the sense we're ablaze for miles around. We douse 2 lamps, leaving one guttering under a mess tin lid so the map remains faintly visible. Its glow turns faces into masks of bone and shadow. Mackenzie parcels out the final water ration, half a mug for the wounded camel, a capful each for the men. The liquid hits my tongue, warm and metallic, yet tastes of salvation. I let it roll before swallowing, imagining capfuls multiplying in the canteen, imagining the surf at Torquay exploding into sheets of spray, anything to trick the body into believing plenty still exists. Wind teases the tarp roof, flapping corners like breath on dying embers. With the breeze comes a low tremor, hard to tell whether distant guns or thunder over the Mediterranean. Both sounds carry the same promise. Something heavy is moving our way. Watch rotation shifts. I draw second stint. Gurung touches his brow and slips beneath a blanket, boots still laced. The others doze in fits. Nobody truly sleeps after an exchange of fire, not with retaliation pending. I climb the dune again, this time lying prone, binoculars steadied on a sandbag. The desert unfurls in wavering grades of black and pewter. Nothing stirs where the Bedouin fell. Their camels, scattered by gunfire, has drifted off. Only dark humps against darker sand mark where two riders lie, wind-blown by grit. The scene feels unfinished, like a page dog-eared for tomorrow's chapter. My breathing fogs the glass, each exhale harsh from thirst. Below, the patrol camp turns small, a fragile hearth in an ocean of night. A sudden tenderness nudges me. These dozen men, animals, every water skin, every round, every scrap of will, held together by the thinnest weave of luck. The war communiques will never list this speck on the Gaza plain. The folks at home will picture gallant charges, not the hours spent watching emptiness and wrestling tongues that stick to teeth. A faint rustle behind snaps reverie. Anderson crawls up, whisper rough. Garong's fever spiking, needs quinine. Heatstroke sneaks after sundown sometimes, as if the sun left poison in the blood. We have 4 tablets left. I nod and send him back with 2, telling him to save the rest for dawn when chills bite harder. He spits dust, muttering thanks, and slithers down. Minutes ooze by. The sky to the west pulses, distant gun flashes stroking cloud bottoms pink, then bruise purple. Each rumble arrives muffled, yet climbs through my sternum like a second heartbeat. The Ottomans won't shell this deep tonight, not worth the powder. But patrols could fan out, curious about those shots. My eyelids sag. I jerk them open, dig nails into palm to stay present. Fatigue is the sly killer out here. A soft hiss, like quill on parchment, drifts past my right ear. At first I think wind, then realize it's sand shearing off the dune crest. Wind sharpening again from the north. The breeze carries a new scent, cool and uncanny. Moisture. Disbelieving. Rain? In June? A joke, surely. Yet the smell persists, heady as coin-rubbed copper. I tilt my face upward. Nothing falls, but the wind grows damp, weighty. Thunder rolls louder now, undeniably skyborne. Clouds stack higher, swallowing the moon. Between rumbles, I catch another sound. Camel hooves, muffled but rhythmically sure, coming from east, the trench line. I lower binoculars, squint. Faint shapes glide across the flats. No lanterns, pacing wide of the Bedouin bodies. Ottoman mounted patrol, sweeping the perimeter. I slither backward, half running, half sliding into camp. Mackenzie is already up, rubbing eyes. "Company?" he asks. I nod, outline numbers with quick fingers. 4, maybe 5 riders. He gathers the men with silent gestures. Rifles unsling, bolts eased back, bayonets left sheathed to keep steel from catching stray light. We hug the leeward side of the camels, bodies tucked between shaggy bulk and dune base. Our tension hums, string tight. If the patrol swings too near, we tangle again. If they skirt wide, we stay ghosts. The thunderhead bursts. Not rain at first, just heavy drops flung wide, fat as musket balls, sizzling on hot packs, popping on helmet steel. Steam wafts up, carrying the sharp tang of quenched dust. Then the real deluge breaks, a sudden torrent that hammers sand flat, washing grit from lashes in rivulets. We gape like schoolboys, mouths open, letting heaven pour straight down our throats. Camels bawl, half delighted, half alarmed. In seconds, the dune becomes a cascade, water carving tiny channels that vanish into thirsty ground. The lantern guttering under the mess tin snuffs with a hiss.
Sheets of rain erase horizons. The Ottoman patrol dissolves into silhouettes, torches flaring as they scramble to shield weapons. Their confusion is our cloak. Mackenzie taps my arm, jerks a thumb toward the trench line, now hidden by rain veils. "Perfect time," he mouths. I understand. Use the downpour to crawl close, measure wire, count sentries, mark gun pits, lightning strobes, throwing the landscape into stark relief for half a heartbeat, enough to imprint bearings on the mind's eye. We leave Gurung feverish, Anderson watching him, 4 others staying to guard camels. The Recon team pairs to 5. Mackenzie, myself, Holt, Singh, and Levy. Each man empties helmet into canteen till vessels slosh, a miracle none expected. We drench scarves, wrap biscuits in oilcloth to keep them dry, smear mud on rifles to dull shine. The rain drums louder, masking our retreating footsteps. We move single file, crouched low, water streaming from hat brims. Ground that baked solid hours ago turns to slurry, swallowing prints as soon as they form. Somewhere overhead, thunder cracks like giant shrapnel, shuddering the very air columns. My boots squelch. I will them silent. Every few yards lightning slices, gifting a snapshot of ground ahead, the faint hump of parapet far off, the hook bend of a wire support picket, a half-collapsed gabion. We pause on each flash, freeze, then advance in darkness. Distance deceives at night. 15 minutes, maybe 20, and we kneel on the lip of a shallow wash, no more than 40 paces from the forward trench. The line is alive. 2 sentries pace slow, rifles under ponchos, curses lost in rain. Between them, strings of barbed wire sag, weighed by accumulating water. A Lewis gun stands under a tarpaulin canopy, crew absent, likely hunched deeper in the trench to dodge weather. Mackenzie signals. We fan out, each man assigned a segment. I belly crawl to the wire, counting strides, 10, then 15. Fingers find the nearest stake, iron, hammered at a slant recently set. The wire itself is 4 strands, crossed, barbs, keen. I cut a loose barb for proof, slide it into my pocket. Lightning snaps. I freeze, cheek pressed to mud. When the darkness returns, I edge along, noting a gap where floodwater has undercut the stakes, potential entry for an assault. A sudden shout splits the rain, Turkish, startled. On instinct, I flatten. Down the line, a sentry has slipped, lantern bouncing from his hand. The light rolls, illuminating Holt's boot as he flits behind a berm. The sentry yells again, firing blind into the night. A round snaps overhead, another thunks into mud by my knee, spraying grit. Adrenaline slams heartbeat into my ears, yet training clamps panic tight. The sentry's partner joins the fray. More shots ring, but rain shrouds muzzle flashes, thunder swallows echoes. Confusion reigns. Other Turks farther back call queries, uncertain if it's accident or attack. Using the din, I wriggle backward, dragging belly through slurry till I find the wash where Mackenzie crouches. Holt tumbles beside us, mud slick, eyes wide. Whispering an apology, we wave away. Levy appears next, then Singh, everyone intact. Mackenzie grins, rain coursing his beard. Got what we came for. He tucks a sketch in his notebook, waterproofed by oil-stained rag. Let's fade. We retrace, keeping the wash as guide. 3 times headlights of flares arc skyward from the trenches, bursting into harsh magnesium bloom. Each time we sprawl flat, breath held. Each time the rain's thick curtains spare us. By the 4th flare, the Turks seem to decide no attack is coming. They slacken to angry mutters, occasional rifle pops at imagined ghosts.
At the ridge above Camp Dawn's first gray seep edges under cloud bellies, turning rain to gleaming threads. Our tarp shelters sag heavy, water pooling in folds. Holt whistles low. Anderson's head snaps up from doze, relief washing his face when he recognizes our hunched silhouettes. He beckons us into the lee. Camels chew contentedly. Coats dark and steaming, Gurung stirs, fever broken by the cool deluge. Eyes clearer. We collapse under the awning. Water streaming off kit. Mackenzie spreads his notebook on a tin plate. Sketches. Safe, trench depth, wire gaps, sentry rhythms, gun placement. Headquarters will be tickled. The cost, 12 lives, if we'd been spotted, feels weighty. But the ledger tonight stays balanced on luck's side. Rain tapers to drizzle, then slow drip. Within minutes, wind veers warm again. Steam coils from sand like ghosts lifting. The sky brightens lavender, a promise of brutal heat once clouds break. I lie back, eyes half closed, listening to the drip-drip from tarp edge, ticking time like a metronome. A sudden hush drops over the camp, the peculiar stillness that often precedes artillery. We all feel it, heads turning west in unison. Far off, beyond dunes we cannot see, a single deep boom peals. Then another, rolling closer, measured, systematic. This isn't random night harassing fire, it's registration, battery, adjusting. We exchange glances. If the Ottomans pegged the Bedouin skirmish to our grid, they may lob shells to sweep any forward elements at first light. Rain-soft sand will muffle bursts, but shrapnel cares little for mud or dry. Mackenzie sternly snaps orders. Strike camp, mounts ready, maps sealed. We haul packs onto steaming camels, cinch girths, lash soaked blankets to saddles. Lightning flickers one last time to the north, the cloud bank drifts off, taking whatever mercy it held. Just above the horizon, the sun's rim flares, blood red through vapor. Heat will follow fast, throat-closing, mirage-bending heat. We form column, turn southwest for the rendezvous wadi. Behind, another thunderclap. This time unmistakably shell fire, thuds into desert. Sand fountains under gray morning light, a tall geyser where our poncho lean-to stood minutes before. The concussion reaches late, slapping backs. Camels squeal, jerk, but our reins hold. "Step out!" Mackenzie yells above the rippling blast. We spur forward, hooves splashing through puddles already shrinking. Shell 2 lands farther wide, then 3 creeping left in search pattern. We ride the trough between impacts, the way drovers steer sheep in a narrow gate, timing pace to the rhythm of death. I glance back just once. Rain-scoured dunes shine slick, pocked by rising dust columns where explosives burrow. Above them, a lone vulture's spiral, wings catching newborn thermals. The scene imprints in brutal clarity, too stark to fade soon. Ahead lies the wadi's slit, still shadowed, perhaps damp. Beyond that, open country to Brigade HQ, where these sketches may tip tomorrow's charge from blind gamble to planned strike. And somewhere beyond all of it, surf still pounds against sun-whitened piers, gulls wheel in salt spray, and the word home waits for men who manage to keep moving. Firmly, "Eyes front, trooper," Mackenzie calls, voice steady. "Road's ugly enough without looking back." I square shoulders, taste fresh dust already replacing rain on my lips, and heel the camel into the gathering glare, not yet knowing that the next stretch of daylight will throw us straight into a sniper's scope in no man's land, where a single glint off a rifle sight can redraw every line we've just etched in hope. Heat come noon feels like a living thing, an invisible rider hanging off my shoulders, dragging breath and thought alike. We've put 3 miles between ourselves and the last shell burst, following a shallow depression that snakes toward brigade headquarters. The camels sweat black streaks through their coats. Every step kicks steam off the ground as if we rode over a forge. Conversation has dwindled to hand signs and the occasional grunt. Words turn to chalk in throats this dry. Ahead, the wadi narrows, climbs into a litter of limestone ridges pocked by old cisterns and half-toppled watchtowers from some forgotten empire. Beyond those teeth lies the strip they're already calling no man's land. A corridor of churned sand, unburied shell fragments, and lines of boot tracks that start and cease without hint of who lived long enough to retrace them. Somewhere on the far side, Turkish forward pits squat like spiders. We can't see them in the midday glare, but the guns behind us swear they exist. Mackenzie raises a fist, and the column halts under a sliver of overhang no bigger than a railway station awning. We slide down, knees buckling, boots skidding, letting the camels kneel and groan. Packs hit sand with muted thuds. The cliff face radiates stored dawn heat. Even the shade feels drawn from an oven, but at least the sun isn't boring holes into our scalps. Maps come out again. On the grease paper grid, our little depression crosses a dotted line marked Probable Outpost Fire Lane. Probable always translates to certain the moment you step into it. Levy taps the sheet with a stub of pencil, then points across the ravine to a jagged rise crowned by a lone fig tree, dead, bleached silver. Perfect perch for a spotter or a sniper. We eat in silence, hardtack softened by the last of the rainwater, now tasteless, warm as soup. Gurung manages half a biscuit before nausea turns him pale. He pockets the rest for later pride. Holt fidgets, cleaning the film of grit off his Lee Enfield's rear sight with a bit of string and spit. Every motion carries extra weight. A man senses, even without speaking, that the margin for mistakes has narrowed to the width of that string. Mackenzie's plan is simple, because the ground is not. 2 men lead the camels along the low bend of the wadi, staying under broken rock. The rest of us belly crawl up the nearer ridge and glass the gap for rifle pits. If the way is clear, we flag the mounts forward and risk a dash at speed, counting on hoof dust to blind any late sleepers. If it's not clear, we improvise. I draw crawling duty with Holt and Levy. Mackenzie keeps Gurung at the reins, trusting the Nepali trooper's steady hand despite fever. We strip off webbing to shirts and belts, keeping rifles in 2 chargers apiece, nothing else. Sand scorches palms as we slide under a ledge, shimmy across crusted clay and start the climb. Every movement sends avalanches of powder-fine grit down shirt fronts. It gathers in the fold of elbows and the soft skin behind knees, but we ignore the itch. One sharp scrape of boot on stone could ring louder than a gunshot out here. Near the crest, a faint breeze stirs, hot as smithy breath, yet scented with sage crushed under our weight. My heart thumps in the hollow of collarbone, not from exertion, but premonition. A stone's throw farther, and we'll silhouette against the sky. I lift 3 fingers, firmly halt. Holt freezes mid-crawl, Levy sliding to a stop just short of my boots. We wait, listening, only the faint creak of camel tack somewhere behind, the distant pop of small arms practice miles off. I edge upward until eyes clear the rim. The world expands, sheets of rippling heat, glints of metal half buried, distant trenches dragged like scars. And there, maybe 700 yards out, a sun flash off glass. I blink. It's gone. Sniper scope, or just a shard of bottle. Either way, the gut knows first. I duck, glint, 2 o'clock, dead fig. Levy's brow furrows. He lifts binoculars slowly, lenses kept below skyline. Seconds tick, sweat stings eyelids. He lowers them. Saw it too, he mouths. Unslinging his rifle, he thumbs the ladder sight up to 700, eases forward till the barrel just kisses daylight. Holt and I cover left and right, scanning for any move in the sea of tan. The stillness is a deception perfected by deserts. Makes you believe nothing lives within miles until death whistles past. It comes fast, a crack like a whip, flat and dry. Stone chips bite my cheek. I drop, tasting blood. Holt swears, grasping his ear where a groove now decorates the rim. The sniper's second round hisses through the gap we occupied 2 heartbeats ago, punching dust into a neat pillar. Buggers locked on, Levy mutters. He shifts 2 feet down slope, lines up the fig tree. Breath out, trigger press, gentle as stealing sugar. His rifle shudders, the round smacks something woody. Bark splinters trail white smoke. Not good enough. Another crack answers a joust between unseen opponents. Levy slides again, face pinched. He's quick. I glance back. Mackenzie can't move the camels without drawing fire. We're pinned until we blind that eye. Holt unbuttons his field dressing, cups it to the side of his head. Blood thin, trickling, but not fatal. Give me a shot, he grunts. Levy nods. We count together. 3, 2. On 1, Holt and I pop helmets above the ridge, waving them like bait. 2 shots bark. One perforates Holt's brim. The other finds empty air where my tin hat dipped a fraction. Levy uses that second to fire. The echo barely fades when something black topples beside the fig's trunk. Looks like a rolled cloak until it doesn't move. Silence floods back, but uneasy, as if the desert itself waits to be sure. We listen. No follow-up crack. No dust puffs. Holt allows himself a thin smile, wiping the blood stripe away. Clever bastard, but not clever enough. We stay flat a minute longer, always the chance a spotter calls correction for a partner's rifle farther out. Nothing. I signal the all clear. Below, Mackenzie waves and starts coaxing camels forward, keeping tight to the shaded wall. As they approach, Levy and I edge along the ridge, rifles leveled. We reach a shallow couloir that descends toward the dead sniper's perch. Curiosity tugs. Mackenzie would chew me raw for leaving the high watch, yet knowing what kit he carried could matter. Range card, orders, even a map marking minefields. I gesture to Levy. He shrugs. Why not? Holt stays back, covering the open sector. We slither down, careful of loose scree. Halfway, the scent of sun-baked figs drifts, sweet, almost pleasant. Then a different odor cuts through, cordite, sweat-trapped days and wool. The sniper lies twisted on his side, face masked by sand. His rifle, German Mauser fitted with 4-AU optic, rests propped by a stone nook. No spare rounds visible, likely carried light for stealth. A leather wallet protrudes from tunic breast. I tug it free, stiff, sweat-darkened cowhide. Inside, a photo of a woman in Ottoman dress holding a toddler, edges cracked. For a moment, the war shrinks to 2 points. This picture and the folded snapshot of O'Leary's girls buried under a wadi wall. Grief tastes the same in every language. We take the optic valuable trophy, leave the man his photograph. Sand already creeps to cover him. By dusk, only scavengers will note his passing. Levy pockets 2 loose rounds, murmuring a prayer I don't know, Hebrew, perhaps. We climb back. Holt greets us with news. Urgent. Second glint down valley, left of that wrecked cart. He jerks thumb. Through binoculars, I spy another flash, a scope adjusting in midday shimmer. Different nest, farther, maybe pair work. The first shot pinned us. The second would have harvested stragglers once we moved. Bastards multiply, Holt growls. He loads a fresh clip, but at 900 yards uphill, we'd need time and miracle. Mackenzie chooses retreat, determined. Too open, too many hides. Short pause. We swing east, skirt ridge shadow, reach the rail siding tonight. No one argues. We march single file along the ravine lip, camels grumbling. Every 20 paces we crouch, scan for glass. Sniper bullets whistle once, twice, far off, probing, impatient, until terrain swallows their arcs. The sun, however, never misses. Heat builds ruthless. Rainwater earned overnight evaporates from our shirts, leaving white crust at seams. Tongues swell, words slur. We chew on rifle straps to coax saliva. The world narrows to rhythm. Step, drag, breathe. Step, drag, breathe. Mid-afternoon, the ridge bends, revealing a scabland of broken masonry. Old Roman culverts the engineers use as guideposts. We drop into the shade of a crumbled arch, letting camels kneel. The stones there are cool, miracle, and smell faintly of sea salt, as though waves lapped them long ago. While Mackenzie scouts the next leg, I splice the captured optic onto my Lee Enfield with scrap wire. Rough, but holds 0 well enough. Sniper's tools against sniper's creed. The air changes, a shift so subtle you feel it in eardrums before skin. Wind, once scorching, dips cool, carries distant rustle of leaves that shouldn't be alive out here. Overhead sky blanches, color leached until it looks like bleached bone. Far to the northwest, a bruised smear gathers, clouds stacking like coal sacks. No one speaks. We know that look, saw it yesterday, mere drizzle. But this bank rises taller, darker, veined with silent lightning that skitters like cracks across porcelain. Thunder heads our way in long, rolling growls. Levy tilts face upward, smile half hopeful. Never rains twice in the Negev, he jokes. Gurung answers with a weak laugh, that hopeful kind you share when daring fate. We remount, push south along fresh bearings, ears tuned to wind. With every half mile, the sky dims until desert glare fades to dull amber. Shadow spreads under camels' legs, turning sand the color of bruised peaches. Static lifts hair on wrists. First drop lands, fat, icy, right on the hot receiver of my rifle, where it sizzles, turning to steam. Second splats on Mackenzie's shoulder, rolling down his sleeve like quicksilver. Then a lull, air holding breath. Somewhere behind, thunder cracks like a whip, closer than before, promising more. Every man glances skyward and waits for heaven either to open or pass us by, unsure which mercy to beg for before the next shot, whatever form it takes, finds home. The first raindrops tease, then quit, as though the sky changed its mind at the last moment. Clouds drift north, leaving a washed-out hush. Riverbeds of steam rising off the ground. Heat reviving with a vengeance. The sudden cool we tasted vanishes like a kindness misremembered. Camels pant, sides heaving under darkened fleece. Thunder lingers far off, a grumbling elder who has said his piece and now watches whether we understood. We slog on until late afternoon, skirting the broken culverts and rusted rails that once fed Gaza's coastal spur. At last we meet guides from Brigade HQ, a pair of wiry signalers in slouch hats wide as outback verandas. They wave us into a rock fold marked by a curtain of camouflage netting draped between shattered pillars. Behind it, the scurry of organized chaos. Horse lines, stacked rifles, field kitchens coughing thin smoke, farriers hammering worn shoes into new shape. The air reeks of linseed oil, curry powder, and wet leather. Smells of a unit girding for something too big to hide. Mackenzie reports, hands over the trench sketch and the Mauser optic smeared with copper wire. The major, a stocky Tasmanian with mustache waxed stiff, studies the drawing, taps the gap we found at the undercut stakes, and nods once. Gravely, "That'll do. Dawn we go through there." His tone makes dawn sound like a gate opening onto a cliff. Orders ripple outward. We're attached to the reserve troop tonight. Rest, rearm, be ready to mount by first light. Rest is a polite fiction, but we pretend. Holt gets his ear stitched by the medical orderly. Levy swaps the Mauser scope for a fresh Lee Enfield still wrapped in grease paper. I trade my sand-clogged boots for a pair half a size too big. Spare issue but blessedly intact at the sole. Gurung receives quinine, color returning to his cheeks enough that he requests double tea. Granted. Flush with captured information. HQ's mood is bullish. Word spreads that water wells southeast of Beersheba remain in Turkish hands. And if we take them before pumps are smashed, we'll drink like kings by sunset tomorrow. The promise lights every face. You can endure gunfire if the end of it tastes like cool water. Evening moves in on cat feet. Lanterns glow beneath nets, their light funneled downward to avoid enemy eyes. Mess tins clatter, voices murmur low. I sit cross-legged by a stack of sandbags, cleaning my rifle one more time, although it no longer needs it. Each pull of oily rag down the barrel feels like stroking a fretful hound, calming both of us. On my lap lies O'Leary's photo, and the Turkish snapshot taken from the sniper. I study the two images side by side, 3 girls laughing on a veranda, 1 child clasped to a woman's breast. Futures that hinge on lines retired men will draw on maps decades from now, describing how the front advanced 15 miles. The bugler blows last post, soft, truncated after the first phrase to keep the tune from drifting beyond the hill. Helmets come off, heads bow. We mumble our own litanies, the dead, the missing, the chance to join either come dawn. When the notes fade, the night sounds resume. Horses stamping, enamel cups tapping, somewhere a harmonica picking out waltzing Matilda until a sergeant shushes it. I stretch out beneath a tilt of canvas with Levy and Holt, the three of us, shoulder to shoulder, like logs in a raft. Moonlight sneaks under the flap, drawing pale lines along our boots. Nobody tries to sleep straight away, mind wheels too fast. Holt whispers about the year's shearing season he promised to manage back home. Levy taps teeth, counting verses of a psalm under his breath. I picture the surf at Torquay, sliding cold around sunburnt ankles. When drowsiness finally wins, it is not real rest, more a blackout that smudges memory. A hand jars my shoulder. "Stand to!" Still, pitch dark, but the horizon glows the faintest green-gray. Horses snort, camels belch and grumble as stable pickets rouse them. I pull on stiff boots, sling bandolier heavy with fresh chargers, finger-tip each cartridge as if blessing it. The major strides past, checking girth, touching each animal's neck, a ritual older than any motor, equal parts tenderness and inspection. Our mounts for the charge are whaler horses, not camels, fleet, deep-chested, impossible to replace. Tack gleams where oil met leather hours before. Each man carries full water bottle and 2 empty sandbags slung beside cartridge pouch for filling at the wells if luck holds. Bayonets fixed to rifle muzzles jut like thin silver claws in starlight. No swords today. Rifle charge, one in the chamber, safety on. We form squadrons in silent files. 30 yards behind the crest of a low ridge we halt, waiting for the sun to thumb the seam between sky and earth. In that hush, even leather creaks sound rude. I can hear my own pulse, a rapid drum. The horse feels it too, shifts weight, ears flicker, sensing tension bleed through my knees. Mackenzie rides along the line, murmuring reminders. Watch your interval. Keep eyes on the next man's stirrup. No premature fire. Then he smiles, not the grin of campfires, but something fierce, charging. "Pour it on, lads. Wells by dinner or we're drinking sand till Christmas." Dawn ignites. A thin gold blade cuts open the horizon, spilling light across the flats. Almost simultaneously, the first batteries behind us crash. Shells whistle overhead, searching Turkish gun pits we taped last night. The ridge ahead spits dust as fragments land. Concussion shoves hot air back at us. Horses dance, iron bits clinking, my knuckles white on rain. A bugle slices the barrage like a hawk shout. The line walks forward, mounts rocking into a trot. Atop the ridge, viewers on foot might see a shadow wave cresting, sun glinting on bayonets, hooves pounding dust into sudden clouds. Speed builds, trot to canter, heart sinking with the surge. The wind, cool at first, whips eyes to tears. I blink grit away, lean low over the neck. The world narrows to hammering hooves, rhythmic jingle of metal, thunder of guns now behind, and the glare of rising sun in our faces. Ahead, 2 miles of open ground ripple with mirage. Somewhere beyond lies that barbed wire gap, undercut by rain, and the trenches nursing rifles still groggy with shock. Machine gun flashes wink already. Tiny white sparks. Bullets hiss past, but at this distance they sound petulant, not mortal, yet. Mackenzie's arm lifts. Signal for full gallop. Heels dig. Horses stretch, every stride swallowing yards. Dust funnels behind ranks like smoke from a locomotive. I raise rifle, half ready. Sense Holt flanking left. Levy right. All of us forming an arrow pointed at the nearest parapet. The ground flies beneath in tawny blur, hoofbeats merging into seamless roar. Bullets grow serious, zip past cheeks, thump wet into horseflesh somewhere down the line. Scream off stone. A whaler to my right pitches, stumbles. Trooper catapults sideways, rolls, doesn't rise. No time to mark it. The wave must not break. My mouth fills with coppery dryness. I taste the moment before impact, like a key against tongue. The wire gap looms, posts toppled, strands sagging from last night's flood. We aim straight, trusting sketches under our saddles more than eyes blurred by dust. Mackenzie stands in stirrups, bayonet flashing as he yells something lost beneath the cacophony. The front rank hits the wire, leaps. Horses hoist hindquarters, soar. My own follows, bellies scraping a protruding stake that tears girth leather, a sickening rip. We land lopsided. I grip tighter. Pray the saddle stays cinched just long enough to clear the top trench lip. Ahead, trench parapet rears, mouths of rifle barrels spewing flame. We're seconds out, too fast for them to correct course sights. I see faces, brown turbans, wide eyes. Then see nothing but the drop as we sail over sandbags into flying dirt. Suspended mid-air in the tiniest silence before gravity remembers. That's where the world freezes. Hooves tucked, bayonets poised. Sun glaring off every shard of metal. An image that will never fully leave my eyelids even years later. And it lasts precisely long enough for thought to whisper, "This is the hinge." Whatever follows belongs to fate, steel, and the will your horse still has left. Time slams forward. We plunge toward the trench floor. Dust, roar, screams, and the charge truly begins. We smash into the trench like floodwater down a gully. Horses heave, men vault from saddles, hooves rake sandbags to tatters. My bayonet spears empty air as the rifle butt meets a helmeted skull with a brittle crack. The first sound inside the roar that tells me I'm still alive. Powder smoke, horse sweat, the sweet rank stench of fresh entrails blur into one heavy vapor. I land in knee-deep dust, stumbling over a crumpled coat that moments ago was a man. No time for names, just shapes that move and shapes that don't. A Turk lunges from a firing step, bayonet level. I parry, twist, feel steel shear flesh. He folds as if unplugged. Bolt jerk, brass clinks. Breath roars in ears louder than rifles. Someone screams in English to keep left, keep left. Might be Holt, might be nobody. Splinters of sandstone spatter my cheeks where a machine gun rake finds the parapet instead of bone. Smoke Eddies open on Mackenzie, halfway down the trench, revolver barking, face blazing with a kind of joyous fury I've never seen before. He points deeper toward the communication sap that leads rearward. "Drive 'em! Fervently, Wells! Lads, remember the wells!" The words slice clear, even through the din. Thirst is a language no man here mishears. We surge. Boots slip on cartridge casings. Bayonets snag in tunic cloth. A flash of thunder, real thunder this time, rumbles overhead, mixing with the flat thud of grenades lobbed blindly from a traverse. Grit sleets down. I duck under a traversing beam, jab bayonet upward. Wood shatters and the beam drops, blocking the passage behind us. No retreat now, except straight through. A wounded horse, gut-torn, screams like a steam siren above the trench line. The sound digs claws into my spine. Levy appears at my elbow, uniform torn, but grin intact, brandishing captured Mauser pistol. "Lines thin, past that bend," he pants. "Saw their officers leg it." We push together, hearts thudding. Beyond the sap, the trench opens into a sunken rifle pit, half-roofed by corrugated sheet that still weeps from last night's rain. Two Ottomans scramble at a tripod Maxim, belts jammed. We fire at once. One drops, the other flings up hands. His rifle pits fill with sand as he kneels, choked by shock. Levy cuffs him past. The prisoner staggers rearward, eyes wide, and vanishes into our tide. We clear the last zigzag and burst onto open ground. Ahead spreads a shallow basin dotted with palm stumps and low masonry walls. Beersheba's outer well field. Water towers lean like skeletal windmills against a sky now furnace blue. Thunderclouds fleeing north. A few Turks sprint toward demolition pits, hammers raised at fuse boxes. Our rifles crack. Men tumble. Holt gallops by on a riderless chestnut, firing from the hip. Reins loop through one hand like a drover after strays. I vault a rubble heap and slide behind a stone trough. The trough is chipped, algae-rimmed, half full. Water, so close, the smell turns my throat to dust. But work comes first. An Ottoman corporal crouches near a dynamite charge, wick flickering orange. I shoot twice. Sparks snuff. Body drops. Sand hisses on the fuse stump. Around the basin, troopers fan out, kicking aside jerry cans of kerosene meant to taint the wells. Gurung, pale but fierce, slashes ropes on the pump gears so they can run free again. Mackenzie rides in, waving his felt hat like a drover signaling muster. "Secure those towers, then drink, you devils!" The cheer that rises sounds more animal than human, a roar torn between hunger and thanksgiving. I kneel at the trough, dip both hands. The first gulp is mud-warm, metallic, satisfied yet glorious. Water sluices down throat, over chin, into collar, mixing with sweat until everything is a single brine of relief. Muscles unclench I didn't know were knotted. Around me men laugh, cough, weep. Some just stare at their reflection in the ripples as if surprised to still have faces. Horses plunge muzzles deep, tail switching, eyes rolling with pleasure. The moment lasts perhaps a minute before reality shoulders in. Artillery pops in ragged counterfire east of town. Turkish batteries adjusting for our new line. Shells walk the ridge we crossed, geysers of sand where stragglers still ride. One burst lifts a horse clean, cartwheels it into the basin perimeter. The dream of safety snaps like sugar glass. Signal sergeant plants a heliograph, flashes rearward. Wells in hand. Need ammo, water, tanks, litters. The mirror winks sun in frantic pulses, Morse begging the horizon for support. We dig in, using abandoned shovels and bayonets to scrape rifle pits around the basin rim. Levy and I choose a hummock near a shattered pump house. We stack sandbags torn from demolished stores, turn the captured Mauser optic onto my Lee Enfield's rail and sight along the shallow wadi that channels straight from the main Turkish camp. Mirage wobbles there. Nothing yet, but dust strings in the distance hint at movement. Shouts in guttural Arabic float on hot air, broken by the thump of troop boots you feel through your elbows before you hear. Spare chargers drop beside me, sweat making thumb and brass slippery. My pulse steadies into a slow, deep throb. Calm that comes only after chaos, the silent slope before the next avalanche. Levy muttering a psalm again, this time out loud. The cadence steadies both of us. Then they appear. First in trickles, then a tide. Ottoman infantry, bayonets glittering, led by a mounted officer under a red-trimmed flag. No artillery prep, no feints, straight guts and numbers. Dust boils around their boots, swallowing ankles. They chant something, a cadence march, until machine gun clatter from Holt's captured Maxim rips the words apart. Bodies trip into sand. The line wavers, surges again. I pick targets, breathe, squeeze. The new scope brings each face close before I flatten it with lead. The rifle kicks, ejects, cycles, shoulder throbs in rhythm older than thought. Levy fires beside me, cursing, curses, fluent and creative, casing pile growing between our knees. The basin echoes with overlapping cracks like cook-fire grease. Still they come. Some reach grenade distance, iron eggs arc, thud short, blow fountains of grit that pepper our cheeks. A shard nicks my brow, blood hot down temple. I wipe with sleeve, keep firing. Holt's Maxim jams. He curses, working the feed. Gurung's section swaps to rapid independent, rifles chattering like jackhammers. The Turkish line falters a third time, men diving for such thin cover as palm stubs offer. Their officer tries to rally, saber flashing. A single volley from the left flank cuts him and the flag bearer both. The standard topples, red against yellow sand. Retreat ripples backward, first a few, then whole knots breaking, running, staggered. Some toss rifles, hands high. Others crawl, smearing blood mud as they go. Silence returns in sudden slices between sporadic shots. A breeze ghosts over the basin, cooler, smelling of cordite and ruptured water mains. My hands tremble when the rifle finally rests. Levy, a shaky laugh, wipes grime from lenses. Across the rifle pit, Holt whoops, brandishing a fresh strip as he coaxes the Maxim alive again. Too late now, but no one scolds triumph. Mackenzie trots the rim, sweat and dust caking his beard. Serious. Good work, but keep eyes sharp, thoughtful. Counterattacks like flies. Swat one wave, another buzzes. He nods at me, approving. Nice glass. Make it count if they try again. Stretch bearers move among the fallen, tugging at tunics, sought, still earned, gut wound. His fingers clutch my sleeve, eyes panic. Mid-afternoon. The sun arcs west, glare gentler, but heat still monstrous. We've held 3 hours, supply camels filter in, panniers dripping precious water. One sullen drizzle even returns, hissing on hot metal, raising fragrant dust that momentarily drowns the stink of blood. We sip, share, pour a hatful for each horse. The basin hums with subdued energy, repair crews already cobbling pumps, signalers stringing wire to forward OPs, chaplain murmuring over a tarp-wrapped form that once argued politics by the brew fire. I sit against the pump house wall, finally tug out pad and pencil. Rain splotched, mud-edged, but serviceable. Hand shakes, lines wobble, yet words surface. Somewhere near Beersheba Wells, October. Wearily. Alive, somehow. Charged at dawn, drank at noon, fought all day for the privilege. Somberly. O'Leary's gone. So is the lad who whistled waltzes on night watch. Resolutely, but the water's ours, and maybe tomorrow the desert will feel less like an anvil. Longingly. If you read this, know that every gulp tastes of home, and the thought of you. I pause, stare across the basin where dusk purples the horizon. Shapes move. Orderlies, pickets, scavenger birds, circling shadows. Yet the scene already drifts into something memory will fold and unfold 1,000 nights hence. Thunder mutters again, distant, seaward, echoing faint artillery like a reminder the war still sprawls past this fragile victory. Troopers settle into slit trenches, index fingers tracing trigger guards in shallow lullabies to steel. I slip the unfinished letter into paybook, button it tight. There will be time, must be, to finish it when the night grows quiet enough to hear surf over the endless hiss of sand. For now I rest my head against warm stone, watching the last light prick fire along every rifle barrel, every shard of shell, until the basin glitters like a field of embers. And wait for darkness or orders, whichever reaches me first. Night sighs in, slow and cool, as if the desert itself has finally exhaled after holding its breath since dawn. A brittle hush settles over the basin. Even the flies seem stunned into stillness. Somewhere up on the rim, a final shovel stroke thuds as the burial detail smooths a mound beneath fresh brushwood crosses. Too many for one day, too few for all the names we could not learn before they bled away. The scent of turned earth mingles with creosote and worn leather, sharp enough to taste on the back of the tongue. Our picket line runs a lopsided horseshoe around the wells, rifles propped where bandoliers sag empty. Ammunition parties will come with the moonrise, they swear. But for an hour or two, there is nothing left to do except breathe and not think. I sit cross-legged in the shadow of the pump house, tin mug of well water warming between my palms. Every swallow glides like oil down a throat scraped raw by dust and shouting. Each sip feels like it might stitch one more ripped seam inside the mind. Across the way, Levy kneels beside Holt, wrapping new bandage around the stitched ear. They talk in low tones, too soft for words to carry. But every so often, Holt's shoulders shake with a laugh that catches, halts, then tries again, like a colt learning to stand after hard birth. Gurung sleeps curled against a camel saddle, hands still gloved. Even in dreams his fingers twitch, counting imaginary prayer beads. The moon claws above the eastern ridge, mottled and enormous, its light brittle as porcelain. It spreads silver across the trough water, over boots arranged by size beside silent horses, over the collapsed parapet where a Turkish flag, now ours, hangs limp like a coat left on a nail. Nobody cheers the sight. Flags are for daylight and speeches. After dark, they are just fabric awaiting another wind. Paper crackles in my lap. The letter I began before the counter-attack. I smooth the creases, lick pencil tip, and let the words return. They spill slower now, heavy as stones I'm not sure where to set down. Somberly. The sky bruised itself all afternoon with smoke, then cleared so suddenly it felt like sin to look at it. We held the pumps. Water tasted of broken shells and iron pipe, but sweeter than any orchard cider. I tried not to notice how red it turned when we rinsed bandages, yet even that color looked alive beside the gray that settles on a face when life walks off. O'Leary would have cursed the fuss and asked for a match. Reverently, I whispered one anyway over his bit of sand. If someone at home could drop a tear where he lies, the desert might sprout a flower tall as memory. I stop, flex cramping fingers. Lantern glow from the orderly station paints our shadows long across the pump house wall. Stick figure ghosts pacing behind us. Somewhere a harmonica begins Swanee River, soft, uncertain. The notes float down the basin like dandelion fluff, snag on my ribs, and settle. Major Clark finds us there. He squats, passes round a stub of pencil for anyone needing to write home before the next push, says dispatch riders leave at first light. His mustache droops, gray with dust, but his eyes hold a gentleness I would have thought impossible 6 hours ago. Gently. Best strike the iron while it's warm, he murmurs. Letters cool too quick out here. Then he stands, boots creaking, and moves on, touching a shoulder here, swapping canteen there, quiet as a nurse among cots. I return to the page, wearily, thoughtfully. We still don't know what city the war will end in, only that it keeps moving its tent further on, Each day we roll our swags behind it like drovers chasing a receding mob. Yet tonight, for the blink between battles, we have water enough to spare a helmetful on the graves so the dust will settle kindly. If that's not victory, it's close enough for tired men. The pencil nub snaps. Stam. I curse softly, sharpen it with a bayonet edge, and finish. When next you walk the beach, let the tide wash your ankles twice. Once for you, once for me. I'll do the same when this is over, somberly. If oceans still remember men like us. I sign, fold, and seal with candle wax scavenged from a signal lamp. The envelope tastes of kerosene where the flap meets tongue. A breeze picks up from the south, cool and carrying faint spice. Curious, cumin? Maybe a camp kitchen miles off preparing lentils for soldiers on the opposite line. The smell reminds me hungry men exist beyond this circle of moonlight. Loading clips, checking sights. Peace here is provisional, paid hourly. Levy touches my boot with his, nods toward the ridge. Listen. I do. Nothing. Then, drift of hoofbeats, cautious, spaced. Our sentry's challenge rings out. A low reply in English answers. Moments later, a file of Indian lancers trots in, silhouettes etched against the moon. They guide mules laden with canvas-wrapped crates, .303 rounds, tinned bully beef, medical gauze. One rider dismounts, slides a slender parcel from his tunic, mailbag. Relief ripples along the trench. Letters from 2 months back, unspooled at last into this thirsty hollow. Holt receives one, breaks the seal, and chuckles. Mom's still angry I swapped the dairy for a saddle. His grin falters, dryly. She says cows don't shoot. Levy asks, curious, what did you answer? Holt folds the page carefully, wryly. That bullets don't kick the milker when you're half asleep. The three of us laugh, too loud, then hushes hush, startled by how brittle the sound feels in open night. The lancers leave as quickly, hooves whispering north. Supply sergeants sort crates. Cartridges clink like distant bells. We top up bandoliers, wipe bolts, stack boxes under oilcloth. Routine acts carve a trench between thought and memory. Close to midnight, the orderly passes with morphine for those who need the dream. I wave him on. Sleep can wait. I want to remember this hush without opiate gauze over the edges. Instead, I climb a ladderless fire step and sit on the sandbag crest, legs dangling into darkness outside the basin. The desert stretches silver all the way to Gaza, its ripples blackened like fish scales. Somewhere, artillery flicks a single ember on the horizon, too far to hear. Overhead, stars pulse, cold, unblinking, millions, yet tonight they seem nearer, almost within reach, as though the sky bent a little in pity. Footsteps crunch. Mackenzie joins me, handing up a dented tin of jam, apricot, almost crystalline, with heat-thickened sugar, contented. Found it hidden under some flour sacks, he says. We eat straight from the tin, spoons scraping bottom. The sweetness shocks the palate after weeks of salt and rot. It fills my head with orchard buzz, bees, a bird I cannot name because its call is more color than sound. When the last smear is gone, Mackenzie wipes his spoon on a cuff, stares east where a faint paleness hints at tomorrow. Gravely. "Orders came," he says. "We push on Gaza Road after sunup. Ottos are pulling guns back. Command wants us to nip heels before they dig again." He pauses, voice softened. Considerately. "But we hold here till dawn proper. Give the lads one more pot of tea. Let the horses breathe." He taps the empty tin against his thigh, metal pinging quiet. Gently. "You should sleep an hour, trooper." Resigned. "I will," I lie. We sit longer, sharing the silence. Finally he claps my shoulder, climbs down. I remain, ears drinking the quiet. Far below, a medic hums a lullaby in some tongue older than deserts. A horse snorts, content. A shovel, pat, pat, pats, another inch onto a fresh grave. Each small sound settles like silt until the basin feels part lake, part chapel. When the breeze shifts, carrying the damp cool of pre-dawn, I slide off the parapet and return to my blanket roll. The harmonica begins again. Auld Lang Syne, this time. Tentative notes sketching across the dark. I close my eyes, find the surf, stand ankle deep where warm and cold currents mix, and let them tug at me without choosing which way to pull. Somewhere behind the lids of sleep, the horse lines stamp awake, kettles hiss, bugles ready their throat. But for the breadth of a heartbeat, the world holds still, quiet aftermath, stitched by sand and water, long enough for a man to swallow one last mouthful of peace and taste home in the cold metal of his cup.